Now, the anecdotal evidence out there suggests that 1 day of dry fasting gets you about the effects of 3 days of regular water fasting. Now, that very well could be true, and we'll explain the mechanistic evidence as to why. But it's also a little scary because that kind of headline can attract people that are not ready for something like this. Dry fasting is advanced, and let me first just mention that I don't know if it's all the way necessary. Okay, I personally have dry fasted. I'm pretty advanced with it. I don't want to go out and recommend something that could be problematic for people because I've done enough videos helping people understand the importance of hydration. But I also do know that when you look back in history, it was pretty evident that we went periods of time without water too. Like we went periods of time without food. We probably went periods of time without water. But we're also under different loads now and we're exposed to different elements and we live in places that maybe we couldn't live before. So it can get hot and we can dehydrate. So anyhow, let's talk about dry fasting and how it works and the strategy behind it. Now there's a guy named Dr. Sergey Filanov who really is the guy that's done a lot of supervised dry fasting. So this is a perfect situation when it's like medically supervised and you can be safe. And he's done these up to 14 days, which is pretty wild. I would not recommend that. I mean, unless you know a doctor that's literally willing to sit with you, I wouldn't recommend that, right? But he's seen some pretty interesting things. Now, the whole entire mechanism behind this is that we have fat in our body, and that fat has hydrogen in it. And when we start to burn fat, we actually do release hydrogen. Okay, but that hydrogen can combine with the oxygen that we breathe, oxygen in our body, and it creates what? H2O, right? So it creates water. And this is not a woo-woo-y thing. This is a real scientific fact that there is such thing as molecular water that our body creates. Now, where things get a little sketchy with the evidence is people will say, well, molecular water is cleaner. Okay, your body produces this molecular water. It's cleaner because it doesn't have to be filtered, it doesn't go through, it doesn't have all the added stuff. That is true to a degree. It's pure H2O, molecular H2O. But by the time water that you drink, even if it had crazy stuff in it, the actual usable portion is still just H2O, right? Yeah, like it's maybe not good, you have to filter through certain things, but I don't think that the body uses molecular water in a cleaner way than it uses water we consume from the tap. Okay, at the actual cellular level. Certainly there's an impact like at the liver level and things the body has to process. I'm not denying that. I'm just saying we don't want to hang our hat on making it like cleaner cellular water, right? Where I think it's particularly fascinating is that we are basically taking fat and turning it into water. I mean, that's what camels do, right? It's really cool. So we can create hydration. The problem is that we're not necessarily wired to do that. We don't have the adaptation to do it regularly. This is where the evidence gets really wild. Like you can dig into this. I'm not going to go into exquisite detail, but basically, people that go long periods of time without water might be more adapted to making this happen. Whereas people that are normally super hydrated, the moment they go without water, it's a lot harder on their body. Like there's adaptations and efficiency systems, just like we condition ourselves to use different fuels, right? We can be better at using carbohydrates if we use a lot of carbs. We can be better at using fats if we eat more fats and less carbs. Yada, yada. There are some actual anecdotes of people actually gaining weight during shorter dry fasts though, because think about it. If your body recognizes you're dehydrated and you are breaking down fat into molecular water, you don't always excrete it like most people do, but you might actually retain the water, right? You're not gaining fat, but you're retaining that water because your body's saying you're dehydrated. Let's retain it, right? So we've seen that kind of happen before in situations. So the point of me saying this isn't to dissuade you from it, but it's also to say like, hey, it's not magic. Like this is a real thing. I don't think that we should turn a blind eye to it. Like for years, I thought like people have caught crap for talking about it. I don't think we should turn a blind eye to it because they do this during Ramadan. They actually dry fast. Like it's a real thing that people do. So why are we going to ignore it? We might as well address the good, the bad, and the ugly. If you were to ever dry fast, I would definitely recommend you hydrate and sodium load before so you have a little bit more water on hand, actually. I feel like being able to give you a buffer in case you start to feel poor, you don't feel good, is probably a good thing. So you have a little extra hydration and then your body will start to pull from the fat. It's going to pull from the fat either way because you need energy. And it's going to start to pull that. So whether you're somewhat hydrated or not. So like even before, again, I know I talk about them a lot, but LMNT would be a perfect choice, right? 1,000 milligrams of sodium in a serving of that. So you can get the accurate sort of mineralization beforehand. But any kind of fasting, I'm a fan of LMNT. I mean, that's literally like the industry they were kind of born in for low carb and fasting. When your insulin levels are low, you excrete a lot more water. That's just the simple physiology of the body. So a good electrolyte that helps you with that and helps you keep that water on board a little bit is pretty good. So during a regular fast, it makes sense, but during a dry fast, it might make sense to hydrate prior to. Why go into a dry fast already dehydrated? We're not trying to just like torture ourselves. Anyway, put a link down below that gives you a free sample variety pack with any purchase from LMNT. They curb your appetite. They're good whether you're fasting or not. And obviously good for hydration. So that link, top line of the description, drinklmnt.com/Thomas. Gets you a free sample variety pack with any purchase at all. Now, from a detoxing perspective, this is where things get kind of cool. There's this thing that's called a cellular pressure gradient. And this is essentially because of the polarization or the dehydration and the change in minerals. You actually create a pressure gradient. Essentially, cells can push broken components of themselves and sort of reject them or kick them out into the interstitial space. So one could say that autophagy and cellular recycling is accelerated even more on a dry fast, although we don't have tons of evidence to really support it all the way. So essentially this cellular pressure gradient forces things into the interstitial space and allows you to clear them faster, potentially, right? Again, no real strong evidence there one way or the other. Now, it's speculated once again that if you are a highly sort of toxic individual that has done lots of bad things to your body and you have total buildup, there's evidence and anecdotal stuff that when people do a fat fast, that when people do a dry fast and fat is being liberated more, they're releasing more of this because of that cellular gradient. Well, that could actually make you feel really cruddy. So during a dry fast, it's not uncommon for people to actually feel quite sluggish and like garbage the first few times they do it because you're actually releasing things that haven't really been tapped into before. There's no denying that like we sequester things in our fat tissue. Like that's kind of known. So if we were having a massive release of fat, you could speculate that that makes sense mechanistically. And I think there's even some observational stuff to possibly, really confirm it. But I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole just yet. I think it's important to note that, if you are someone that could potentially become ketoacidotic, where you have such high levels of ketones, you enter a state of ketoacidosis, it could happen a lot faster with a dry fast because you're not able to flush, right? So it can happen in 3 days or so with dry fasting. So whereas with water fasting, it's going to be more like 9 to 11 is what you kind of see where people could become more ketoacidotic. But even then, like you have to have an underlying metabolic issue for that to be a problem. So I wouldn't be overly worried about that. What's the TLDR here though? I think the TLDR out of all of this is that I think you're going to get a similar effect just fasting with some water and electrolytes and possibly even occasionally doing like protein sparing modified fasting where you just drop your fats, drop your carbs, and go lean protein for a couple of days. That's called a protein sparing modified fast. In my opinion, I've done it all. Dry fast, sugar fast, MCT, FMD fast, regular fast, 5-day fast, 7-day fast, 3-day fast, 24-hour fast. I've done them all. And what actually leans me out the fastest, if you're after it for fat loss, is truly just doing like 2 days in a row of protein sparing modified fasting at like 500 to 800 calories of just lean protein, like whey, chicken breast, and white fish. That's been used in the research to get things very lean, very fast. So and it's safer. I think that you can hydrate with that. You can have protein on board. You're not tapping into lean tissue. So dry fasting works. And I think it's something that's there for the people that are more advanced and are really also looking for maybe the spiritual connection that comes with it because fasting is important for that for a lot of people. It's done in religious settings. It is good for spirituality. It gets you closer to God. It gets you closer, right? So those things matter. And the people that are into it for that, it matters to them. So we shouldn't discount that, but just weigh out your options. I did another video on the different kinds of fasting that might be helpful for you as well. I'll link to it in the description. See you tomorrow.